Hello and welcome to another episode of The Stew with JT Brew here on the Dynasty Pros Football channel. I'm your host, Justin Taylor. Today, we are discussing reactions from Week 5, what to expect going into Week 6, and some fantasy strategies for the rest of the season, whether you got a builder, whether you're a contender, or whether you're just holding. We got some strategies for you. Stick with us. You're in The Stew.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sipping brew, sifting through the statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the Stew with JT Brew.
Hi, today we got my guy Mike Lindberg from the Dynasty Pros Football crew joining me today to talk a little NFL fantasy football. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, man, thanks for having me. It's always great collaborating with fellow Dynasty Pros content creators. I've been a fan of your show since joining Dynasty Pro crew back in August. I must say I was clearly missing out before. You do really good work, man. So congrats on the successes of the Stew. I had this day circled on my calendar since we connected, so I'm really pumped to get going. So let's do it up, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, let's jump right into it. Week 5 NFL season in the books. Let's talk about some highlights, some lowlights, some things that kind of, caught our eye here in this last week. The one we kind of brought up first off, Nathan Hackett, revenge game against Sean Payton and the Broncos. What's going on with the Jets and the Broncos? Two teams kind of feel like they're going in opposite directions.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Like people were thinking the Broncos might have had a shot in this one. They clamped down. They look bad. Nathaniel Hackett must have had that date circled on his calendar, similar to I had this one on mine, because the Broncos did not show up. They obviously there's something going on there in Denver, so hopefully they can work through it. But it's not looking good right now. Sean Payton's regime as the Denver Broncos head coach is looking like a bad start.
Yeah, they've had zero consistency on offense. People were talking about coming in this season like this Broncos defense could be a legit defense, and they have just looked terrible. I mean, the whole year, absolutely awful. I don't know what's going on there. You look at the guys on the roster, and you're like, hey, you look at the names on the back of the jersey look legit. They look like they should be good. But, man, this unit cannot play together. They have just looked awful all season.
If anything, this year it's kind of been an opposite of last year. Last year, the offense was like ranked 32nd in the league. They've done a bit better, but their defense this year has been their big gaping hole. Like giving up 70 to Miami, I'm surprised that Vance Joseph wasn't fired after that one. They're getting what they deserve now. I think the Broncos, if they're keeping a coach like that around for no reason, it's pretty sad.
Another game, a game I went to. Was pumped to go see the Colts. JT in his return, signed with the Colts. Super excited about it. I'm a Colts season ticket holder, so I was pumped to see that he was going to stick around. I was just distraught that he was going to get traded. Came in, knew they were going to ease him back. They said that the whole time. But, man, we should have been thinking about Zach Moss. Zach Moss says, wait. I haven't gone anywhere. Zach Moss comes out, has a huge game. This now looks like a potential legit duo of Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss going forward for the Colts.
Yeah, that really surprises me. Zach Moss played 80% of the snaps versus Taylor's 15. Moss had a monster week in week 5, rushing 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. This was a timely game for him too, right? I mean, he's now looks like he's carved out a bigger role now moving forward. I think the Colts can be a little bit more precautious with Taylor easing him back in. So yeah, like you said, this could be a two-headed monster moving forward. But I'm very optimistic about the future with the Colts now. After this year, Moss isn't under contract, so it's all JT's backfield. But I think with the injury and what happened in the preseason, they could ease him back in a bit further. But I could see him taking over that backfield by after their week 11 bye.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Moss is going to be completely out of it. JT will work his way back, but as we've seen this year with the injuries and everything else, you got to have a couple running backs. You got to have a
But
couple quarterbacks. I mean, you got to be deep with the injuries that are piling up. I'm on records. I was not ever a big Zach Moss guy. When they actually traded Neon Hines for him, I was not happy about it. I liked Hines in this offense. Obviously, he's never been able to get it going with the Bills. Offseason injuries out for the whole year. Moss has really looked solid, getting all the work. I think that's made a big difference. Him in the second year here with the Colts, he got all the work in the preseason, the offseason with JT basically sitting out and recovering from injury, and it's shown. He's looked really solid running the ball, moving forward. I mean, he was never a guy that everybody really raved about his speed or anything like that, but he's been able to break some big runs for a guy who isn't, doesn't have an extraordinary 40 time.
makes you really wonder what is actually going on in the Buffalo Bills backfield. Like a guy like Zach Moss never got that opportunity. Now he's had his second chance, and whether either way, it's a great story for Zach Moss because next year he's going to go in and probably find a decent contract with the team and fill in just like he's done this year. He might even get extended. You never know with that 1-2 punch moving forward.
Well, to kind of
Devon
stick with the. Oh yeah. Go ahead, jump in here on Devon A-Chain. I mean, this has been just the surprise of all surprises.
Well, we all wake up this morning and see a bunch of Schefter tweets, and we have A-Chan dominant in week 5, right? Number 2 running back in PPR through 5 weeks, and he was like, he didn't even play really in week 1 at all. 460 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 67 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Like, what a story, man. Just like he was banged up in preseason, so that size, that's always going to be a factor with him. I think, like the durability, but they were able to get him into space really easily. And some of those runs, I saw a chart of where he was running, and he wasn't even going up the middle; it was all around the sides. And what an impressive week he had! What an impressive run he has! What devastation it has been for the community today. Crazy.
Yeah, him being hurt is definitely a big blow for fantasy teams. I've gone back and we rewatched a lot of those Dolphins games on NFL Plus just to kind of see, what's going on here. Why is this offense so successful? Their offensive line is doing a fantastic job of stealing their blocks and creating lanes. So him, whether it's a chain or it's Mozart or whoever, they're letting those guys get outside, make one cut, and use their speed to burst. And it's so much different when you watch some of these other games. As someone who watches a lot of Steelers, it's about night and day between how they're blocking and how Miami's blocking. All their guys are getting off their first line block, sealing them, and getting to that second level, getting to the linebackers, getting to the ends, and then letting those guys use their athletic ability. So obviously, Chain's going to be a huge loss for him. Hopefully, he's back sooner than later. Hopefully, Mozart, Jeff Wilson is another guy. I know I was a big Jeff Wilson guy coming in the year. I was grabbing him late in drafts everywhere I could. Hopefully, he gets back soon and helps out here with Chain being out. But this Dolphins offense has been everything I think the fantasy community wanted. I mean, Tua's getting the ball out. Waddle's looked good. Tyreek Hill is doing Tyreek Hill things, and now the running game is legit. I mean, you hate to see injuries because, man, this is a fun offense to watch.
He'll be back. Hopefully he does not go on IR like some people are projecting him going. They haven't put him on there yet, so there's optimism that it might be, a 2-3 game stint. But yeah, like Jeff Wilson coming off IR too. His window is opening up right away, so they could they can activate him any day now. So that's a huge thing. He came in last year and was the lead back when Mostert was in the lineup. So who knows? Raheem Mostert's had a really hot start too. I think he's sitting at RB3 for the year right now, which is a huge thing. So like that touchdown upside, he's a smash play moving forward. Jeff Wilson coming in, I think he'll be a smash play, and you gotta keep Savon Ahmed and Brooks in the back of your mind too. Chris Brooks could come in as well as a young guy with that same kind of profile as a Chain. Who knows? It's exciting to watch.
Yeah,
anyway.
heading out the other coast. Yeah, exactly. Heading out the other coast, LA. Puka Nakua has been the story. Cooper Cup coming back. The word was everybody was nervous. How does this affect Cooper? Can Puka still put up all these yards? Can they get all these targets with Cooper Cup coming back? And it took one game to show that absolutely both those guys can dominate together. Puka 7 for 71 and a touchdown on 11 targets. Cooper Cup 8 for 118 on 12 targets. Buying Matt Stafford everywhere I can buy right now is this pass offense looks legit. Cooper Cup just coming back, and now he's got some guys that are showing that they can do some stuff. And you can't just watch Cooper anymore. You got to be on Puka. You got to be on Tutu Atwell. This offense, even Higbee, who didn't get a lot of looks this last game, has been really solid. So this Rams offense way better than I think we thought it would be coming into the season.
Absolutely. And, like 62% target share between Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua in that game. I mean, lots of targets to go around. And you know what? Tutu Atwell still played his regular, 80% plus snaps, which, some of us were worried about him fading off in a little bit, but, he can open up the field. He was shown, he can even score on those, in the red zone too. So loving the Rams and what they're doing. And, we just got word today that Van Jefferson has been shipped off to Atlanta for like a 6th or 7th rounder or something like that. So, a fresh start for him. Might be a great compliment to Drake London, a wide receiver too, that, Atlanta's been looking for as well. So, not huge news, but a fresh start and for a guy that probably needs it.
Yeah, I mean, Mac Hollins, he plays hard. You got to appreciate who he is and what he is as a player. But if Mac Hollins is your number 2, that's just a tough look. So Van Jefferson going to Atlanta, I think is a good shot for him. Get a chance to kind of maybe revitalize his career. Like I said, I still think Mac Hollins plays. He's not been much of a fantasy asset whatsoever as, Atlanta not throwing the football. But I do like that moving Van Jefferson out there to Atlanta.
Me too. Looks good for him. And now, I guess Jamar Chase is always up and open. I mean,
no joke. Did we learn something as a fantasy community this week where, everybody gets down on guys? We get a little iffy. We think a little too much. Everyone that sat Joe Burrow goes, what was I doing? What was I doing? Play your studs. I know he's been struggling, but man, he showed everybody this week. He still is Joe Burrow thrown to a wide open Jamar Chase at all times, right?
Crazy. 19 targets for Chase in this one. I mean, he was ultra targeted and obviously for good reason. Burrow threw, his best game, 317 yards, 3 touchdowns. He still looked immobile, but he's definitely on the cusp now. And the Bengals are now positioning themselves back inside that race because they didn't look very good headed into this game. But, with the Steelers win and the Ravens losing and the Browns going on a bye, that division is wide open now. And, a healthy a more healthy Joe Burrow and a Jamar Chase hitting on all cylinders. Watch out. That division is up for grabs again.
Yeah, actually, I was going to talk about that a little later, but let's just jump into it now. The Steelers. Unbelievable win against the Ravens. I mean, it's classic Steelers where they go just absolutely get manhandled in Houston and then come home and play lights out and end up beating the Ravens in what is always a drag out, fist fight of a game between those two. They're somehow able to pull that game out. But they're in first place in the AFC North. I don't think many people saw them at 3-2. I preseason said I thought this division was one of the toughest divisions in football. I thought whoever got out of this was going to probably win the division with 10 games, maybe 11 max, just because of the tough schedule and the back and forth. Nobody in this division is just going to dominate. It's going to be a lot of split home and aways with guys. So the Steelers, I mean, Kenny Pickett, it was ugly, but the defense showed up once again. And Pickens, who, in the dynasty community, he's one of those guys, people love him or hate him, but a big love for him in this game as he looked fantastic once again.
Yeah, I think that was a slight jab at me there. I'm a Pickens. I was not a Pickens truther, and I went on record going against him, but he's coming around on me. I said a couple things needed to happen for him to emerge, and him emerging past Deontay Johnson was the one thing that was the big factor for me. And unfortunately, Deontay got injured, but it actually opened up a huge opportunity for Pickens, and he seized it. So good on him for doing that. He looks like the alpha. He looks legit. That's the only bright spot about that offense, in my opinion. Najee's looked really bad. Jalen Warren's outproduced him. But yes, the Steelers, wow. Do they ever play well at home? And they like, do they ever? You know, you can't count them out at home, especially in that division rival. So good on them. They've opened themselves up. They position themselves up. But the only thing about that is it almost guaranteed Matt Canada's job for another season, which is, to me, a really bad thing for our Pickens shares and our Deontay Johnson shares, because I think, you know, he's holding them back. He must have something on Tomlin or somebody in the upper office, because the fact that he's still employed is beyond me. But, you know, Steelers are winning games. They're getting them out, and good on them. So good for the Steelers.
Yeah, I think if it was any other organization, I think Cannon would be gone. I think only because Tomlin's been there as long as he has. He was his pick. They kind of let Tomlin, run the show there. If there's anywhere else, I think Canada is gone. I mean, you can't have a team that their offense has performed this bad with this much talent over the last couple seasons and just keep making excuses. So I love the win. I never want to root against the Steelers, especially against the Ravens, but getting the win, you're right. Maybe it did end up hurting them in the long run, as that keeps Canada around and continues to hold back all these really good fantasy players that should be legit on your team. And if you're like me and you have a ton of these guys on your teams, which I do, I have a ton of Pickens, ton of Johnson, ton of Freiermuth, ton of Warren, ton of Najee, Pickett. I have everybody. And it's just like every week you play them and you're like, can I maybe get double digits this week? Which is sad. You're like just hoping for double digits, as I've had so many 5 and 6 points games out of Najee this year. It's just been brutal. So like you said, nice win, good hard fought, but maybe it hurts them in the long run, keeping Canada and keeping some of these guys down.
I was hoping that O-line would come around a bit quicker. You know, they're just not. You know, they brought in those guys. They had that big draft capital, you know, in their first rounder, and then they brought in a new center, and you know, I thought they would gel a bit quicker. So, you know, might take some more time, but you know, they're 3-2, and there's still time. You know, they have a bye coming up this week, so maybe we get some news on Deontay Johnson potentially coming back. Haven't heard much from him yet, so hopefully he can come back and continue that. So yeah, the Steelers, yeah, that's a shock heading into this season for sure.
Well, yeah, coming off the bye week, if they get Deontay back, the thing is,
totally.
I mean, people got to look at, they've got a pretty easy schedule coming up. They're at the Rams. Then they have 3 straight home games against the Jags, the Titans, and the Packers. They could legit easily win 3 out of those 4. And that gets them to 6-3 and in a really nice spot entering the harder part of their schedule. So, I mean, this team, I don't think is going anywhere. Now, can they lose against anyone? 100%. Can they beat just about anybody? I think they can. It's just that you never know what team's going to show up in Pittsburgh.
And the cold weather is about to come down too, and that only is, you know, that plays a really big factor in Pittsburgh as well. So the fact that they're 3-2 now and got their cushy part of their schedule after a bye with some healing happening, you know, Freiermuth needs that healing, Deontay Johnson needs that healing. So like, they're positioning themselves to be what people thought they were going to be headed into this season. So yeah, let's keep it going.
Speaking of some players that were left for dead a couple of weeks ago, Justin Fields and DJ Moore, the combo of all combos the last 2 weeks. These guys have absolutely lit it up after everyone was talking about do the Bears need a tank for Caleb Williams? They got to get rid of Justin Fields. And just when everyone is just leaving him for dead, Justin Fields comes out back-to-back 4 touchdown games.
It's incredible because like he wasn't even throwing 1 touchdown games before this week, right? It's just incredible the change. You know, he's not even getting that fantasy production with his legs either. So just wait and see, you know, like good opportunity there. DJ Moore, you know, is the number 1 target, the alpha there. What a resurgent that has been in the last 2 games for him. And sky's the limit now with those two. They got a juicy matchup this week against the Vikings at home. So I'm looking for them to explode again. That's going to be another exciting game. With the Jefferson injury too, another tough one. Let's get on to that one. Maybe that's a huge
Yeah,
news.
let's talk about some of these injuries. Justin Jefferson coming out that he's probably going on IR. Anthony Richardson from the Colts going on IR. James Conner hurt. We're not sure how long for him for the Cardinals. He's been really solid. Jahmyr Gibbs, Aaron Jones all of a sudden didn't play on Monday night. That got me in a league where we're not able to pick up guys the day of, and it came out he wasn't going to play. I got stuck with him in my lineup. The injuries are starting to really pile up here for a lot of people. And as these bye weeks hit, it's getting really long in the tooth here trying to figure out how to fill some lineups.
Well, and the worst part about it is a lot of these inactives are coming so far into the weekend that you can't even adjust. Like the Jahmyr Gibbs came up on like Saturday, I think it was, and then Aaron Jones was like an hour before the game started. I got that notification. So you're in the league isn't putting us in a good position either with how these injuries are coming up, and late tweaks are not a great situation. The Jefferson one though is huge here. Like there is word he was placed on IR this morning, so he's going to be out at least 4 games. So what's happening in Minneapolis? What's going to happen there? I was at that game this weekend, and clearly they needed him in that fourth quarter. They were in that game the whole way. Some questionable calls and Jefferson leaving made the Minnesota Vikings not in the position to win that game, but they had that opportunity, and now they're in a position where they're 1-4. There's a lot of chatter going on that they may be in the running for one of these top quarterbacks in the draft. Tanking is on it has been thrown out there. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think the Vikings are doing? What's in that?
Yeah, it's tough because they thought they were going to compete this year, but that defense is pretty terrible. And outside of Justin Jefferson, I like Jordan Addison a lot, but Kirk Cousins is not a young man. Their window might be past. Actually, here you can help me out here, Mike. We got a couple viewer questions jumping in. Let's get in here and answer some of these for some guys real quick.
Yeah.
So we got Wizzy Jefferson says, I have Olave, Adams at wide receiver, but consistency has been there for my third wide receiver. Hasn't been there for my third wide receiver. I'd like to target CD, maybe throw out D-Hop for him. Obviously can't do 1-for-1 with him. Any tips on a trade? So looking for a third wide receiver. Already has Olave and Adams, which is a nice start. Getting CD is going to be really tough. Big question is this a redraft league or a dynasty league? In redraft, you might be able to get CD right now just because people are down on the Cowboys a little bit. Maybe you could throw in D-Hop, and if a team is kind of hurting at running back, you might be able to throw in another running back in that trade there. Dynasty, you're going to have to give up quite a bit. Guessing that he's saying D-Hop, this is probably more of a redraft question. But I definitely could see D-Hop really solid the other night. And again, in redraft, you don't have to worry about CD's future. If D-Hop's better than him for this year, you're golden. You're just trying to win this year. So I could see that, depends on how big of a fan. Is it a Cowboys fan that has CD that's just not going to give him up? Or maybe you got somebody that's just kind of fed up with the Cowboys. Maybe you can dump in D-Hop and somebody else in there. Here's a good spot. Like if you have like a Jordan Addison or something like that, you could probably pair them up with Jefferson coming out. Here's another guy I would look at. Maybe go look at Jordan Addison. Maybe you can acquire Jordan Addison in a redraft for fairly a decent amount, not too expensive, to kind of be your third wide receiver. I mean, D-Hop's not terrible in that third flex spot right now. But just kind of a little bit depend on who you have there and what the owner of CD has. Mike, what do you think about this? Any good suggestions?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, CD might be a tough snag, especially in Dynasty. And like you said, but in redraft, that might be a doable thing. People are down on him. I think that, I'm still a big CD Lamb supporter. I think he still is the guy. If you look at his target share, it's the game scripts that have been disadvantage to him. The last game against the 49ers, well, we got to throw that one out. The 49ers completely dismembered them. But I do think that CeeDee Lamb has got his brighter days are ahead of him. And if you can snag him for a D-Hop and a little bit more in the future, like absolutely, I would do that for sure. But Addison, another great one. Yeah, JT, you nailed that one. he's in a really good position right now. He was emerging past KJ Osborne in the latter half of that game, and watching him. So a lot of opportunity there, especially with Jefferson out. Try and get Addison too.
We got Ricky AA on here, say MPLS born and raised here. Nice, thanks for joining us. He throws out there a little Cream Hunt or Roshan Johnson. If it's Dynasty, Roshan easily. In redraft, I'm probably Roshan as well. I think he's going to continue to get more looks in that Bears backfield. If he wouldn't have got the concussion on Thursday night, I think he would have had a big game once Herbert got hurt in that one, especially with Foreman not dressed for the Bears in that one. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Roshan is the call there with Khalil Herbert going down too. He's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks as well, from what I hear. And Roshan was coming on. He was more, he was definitely better with his opportunities. And he's that rookie that has got a lot of run. So let's get him in our lineups. Definitely over Cream Hunt for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Ricky's got a couple more questions and comments here on the Vikings. It says, even with Kirk at his best, it's not enough for the Vikings to win. Time to trade up for a QB in the 2024 draft. I got to agree with you there. I mean, Kirk's done everything he can there. I just don't think that team has enough to get it done. Jefferson and Kirk are really good. The running game's not great. The defense is bad. The defense is bad. I just don't think they can get it done. Even with a guy like JJ, I think it's going to be tough. He also, his next comment said, Jordan Addison is about to get more volume. He's going to be well worth it. Dust off McDuffie and his TD receptions. I love Addison. I'm definitely a guy. I'm out there. I loved him preseason. In redraft, I saw a stat today on the X. He was available in a really surprisingly amount of leagues. I was actually shocked at how many percentage of leagues he was still out there, especially in redraft. Obviously in Dynasty, he's not going to be out there. Somebody drafted him in the first round. But redraft, he's a great pickup. I'm moving him up in my rankings, and it definitely leagues where I was starting him as a flex. Now he's in my top 2 or 3 wide receivers every week going forward. They're going to have to throw the football. Just because JJ's gone doesn't mean this team can all of a sudden start running the ball and slow it down. They've got to put the ball in the air. I love Jordan Addison.
Another guy that you just remind me of, another guy that would be probably worth pick up, and that could be in that wide receiver 3 flex range, is Josh Downs. I'm really high on him now with Minshew coming back in.
Love it.
Seeing massive target share over the past 2 weeks. 25. Well, massive target share when Minshew is throwing them the ball. Week 3, I think it was 25%. Last week, 28%. And Minshew came in the game at the halftime. So look for Josh Downs to be the go-to guy there. I could see him gaining, 10 plus receptions. Targets a game moving forward. And he's clearly Minshew's go-to guy.
Yeah, I love that Josh Downs call. 100% agree with you on that. He says, Luke says R. Johnson. I'm guessing he's saying Rojan or Amaro DeMarcado, redraft league, Cardinals. I know DeMarcado's the next guy technically up for the Cardinals. I like James Conner a lot. I'm not so sure that all of a sudden he's a guy that gets a bunch of points. If you're desperate for running back, I can see picking him up off the waivers because you just need to fill in some of these bye weeks and injury weeks. But if you're not, he's not a guy I'm out there actively trying to pick up unless I'm just desperate for an RB to fill in. I'm Roshan over him all day.
Yeah, me too, Ed. Dermacado might be like a 1 week kind of fill-in type scenario because Keontae Ingram is on his way back too. Like, he didn't play the last game because he was injured, so he would have been in that position as well. So moving forward, even if Connor does miss an extended period of time, I would look for a committee back there between Ingram and Dermacado. I can't expect much either way.
Yeah, he says he just Ricky jumped back in here and says I have Miles Sanders tier. So if Miles Sanders is your number 1, yeah, you probably need to go out and get maybe both those guys if you're hurting that bad. He also says he's got Bijan, which is a lock. Okay. So that's nice. So you're basically getting those guys to back up as your RB2. So I like Roshan first. I don't mind the pickup of DeMarcado if you need something there. We got another question here from Wizzy Jefferson coming back in, answering some of those things we said. He says he's a 1-4 team, actually has CD and Jordan Addison. I'm 3-2. I have Fields, Adams, Olave, D-Hop, C-Mac, Shane, Hawkinson, Madison, Tank Dell, Jalen Warren, Zay Flowers, and Gabe Davis all redraft, which makes sense. Redraft here. I would ask for CD if you can see if you can maybe push him like D Hop and Madison or something like that for CD. I can see that. And then if he doesn't budge on CD, I could see pushing for Jordan Addison after that. Like go back as a counter with Addison, because then it looks like you're still willing to make moves, you're still willing to trade, but you're not stuck on just doing CD. I like the idea of going back and then offering Addison if he comes back on CD. See what he kind of asked for on there. I think Zay Flowers is going to go up. I don't terribly hate if you lose Madison because you have Jalen Warren, who I think is playable in redraft leagues. And Gabe Davis, he's super hit and miss. Maybe it's the time to sell right now. He just had that really nice game for the Bills. Maybe you could see if you could give Gabe Davis up for Jordan Addison, or Gabe Davis and something else for Jordan Addison. I would be up on that. I just think Jordan Addison is going to be more consistent than Gabe Davis. My personal opinion down the stretch, Gabe is so hit and miss, and I just think Addison's going to get a ton of volume without Jefferson there. What do you think?
Agreed. Yeah, I agree with that. I actually love the D Hop and Madison, first punch, try and get him, lock up that deal for CeeDee Lamb if you can. A lot of people are so high on Madison, seeing him firsthand. I saw Akers, emerge in the second half there, getting more run. It's only a matter of time before that's an even split, if anything. So, Madison, get him while you're, sell him all high a little bit here. You got D Hop. If you can manage that, then do that. And then your second choice would be that Gabe Davis for Jordan Addison type scenario. Love it. You're going to have more consistency out of Jordan Addison. Gabe Davis is a good, best ball kind of throw, right? Like when he goes off, he's a good player to be in your flex because of that upside. But if you're looking to contend, you have Olave, you got Adams. Let's get that high floor guy in Addison who's going to, now earn, 10 to 13 targets a game with Jefferson gone. I love that call a lot.
Yeah, I love it. Ricky says, thanks, guys, for the info. Absolutely. Ricky, thanks for jumping on, asking questions. Wizzy Jefferson, also appreciate it, man. Thanks for jumping on here and asking us questions. Feel free to jump on the YouTube stream and ask us questions here throughout the show. Mike, let's jump on to a couple teams that we want to talk about that are like some good surprises, some bad surprises that we've kind of been talking about today. The New England Patriots. What has happened to the Pats?
Wow, what a fall from grace. Suffering the two worst losses in Belichick's career, losing by 35 against the Cowboys in week 4 and by 34 to the Saints in week 5. The worst part for us fantasy managers is the Patriots only scored 3 points total in those 2 weeks. What do we do with a player like Ramondre Stevenson? He's looked awful. Is there any glimmer of hope for any Patriot offensive player moving forward? What do you think?
For me, I'm the same way. I play the Patriots defense in a ton of like redraft leagues or like some dynasty leagues where we actually have a team defense. I thought, the offense is going to be down. They've got some injuries. This defense is going to kind of jump in here and like at least keep this game close. Maybe they lose the Saints, but maybe it's like 14-10. It's a close game. They just got worked. They got worked on defense. They got worked on offense. It was just ugly. And with the injuries now to Gonzalez, the injury to Judon, man, this Patriots team, all of a sudden with that tough AFC East, this team has tank potential written all over it. I don't know if they'll try to do that or what's going on there, but man, if you're a Patriots fan, I'm worried. You can see some bad games, but this has me worried about how bad this team could actually be.
Whether we want to admit it or not, this team is tanking whether they want to admit it or not, because they're just that bad. Like, I've never seen a Bill Belichick team look that pathetic before. Wow, what a fall from grace. My old man's a huge Patriots fan, and it's heartbreaking watching him watch these games nowadays when there was such a glory day. Can't feel too bad though. They had their time. I bet
My best friend Brandon's a Patriots fan too. We've been to a million Colts Steelers game together, and he always talks trash, so he's pretty quiet these days. Wizzy Jefferson said, I played the Pats defense and he had the Saints defense. I feel you on that. I played the Patriots defense over the Steelers defense in about 4 leagues, and they scored me either 0, negative, or like under 5 points, where the Steelers were consistently scoring between 15 and 20. It cost me a couple weeks. It was bad. I feel your pain, Wizzy Jefferson, on that one. That was tough. Wizzy also said, thanks for the recommendations, guys. Always tough to take in a lot of info that quickly. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. We want to try to give you guys, the best info we can. But it's starting to become I'm a big Juju guy. I've always liked Juju since he was on the Steelers. I've got him on a ton of rosters, and he is just sitting on my bench, and I don't even look his way anymore. I don't even think about putting him in or playing him. Literally, Stevenson, I've given a couple shots to in a few leagues. And then Hunter Henry is about the only other guy I'm playing at all. He gave me a big fat 0 last week. He's either been good or nothing. It's getting harder and harder to look at any of these Patriots players and say, do I play him this week? It's real. There's definitely, you can talk yourself into some other guys that you can't. I mean, I guarantee at the beginning of the year, you said, if I put this guy up against this Patriots player, I'm definitely playing the Patriots player, like no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're starting to question that.
And you know what? Mac Jones didn't look bad in week 1. So what has happened to that Patriots team? So there's something going on there. They're disconnected. The injuries hasn't helped either. But yeah, I'm not going to start a Patriots player until I see it on the field first, because there's a lot of variables there for sure.
Yeah, like I said, Hunter Henry is about the only guy I've been playing in some leagues where I don't have a lot of tight ends, but even he's on the list for me of, if I got somebody else to play, I'm probably going to play him. Going back to this Colts game, coming up, they're at Jacksonville. I talked about a lot in the offseason. Minshew mania, Gardner Minshew. I said before the season ended last year that the Colts need to go out and sign this guy. He just feels like a Colts player. Any fans are going to just love this guy. I thought with Streichenstein there, I said, this is a perfect guy to sign. He knows the offense. Something happens. And this is before they even got AR. I was like, if anything happens, this guy at least knows the playbook, knows how to run what they want to run. I thought it was a great signing. And now you're seeing why. Is Gardner the man? Is he Superman going to win you a bunch of games? No. But is he going to give you a shot? Absolutely. He's going to keep you in games. And now he has a shot to go to Jacksonville, which has been the kryptonite of the Colts the last couple of years. I think, what is it? They've lost 8 straight times in Jacksonville. They cannot win there. 8 straight. He ex-QB of the Jags. If anybody's going to break the streak, it's got to be Gardner, doesn't it?
I hope so. They look better when Gardner is in the lineup anyhow. They've, I think they had that overtime win against, was it the Saints? Yeah, that was a good game.
Ravens, they beat the Ravens was huge.
Yeah, that was a huge game, and he came in cold, right? So, like, Gardner Minshew is probably the best backup, or one of the best backups in the league. He can win you games, and in that division that's wide open, the Colts are right in there. I love it. I want to see them do well. I mentioned earlier about Josh Downs. I still think I'm really high on him now. With Jonathan Taylor coming back, Zach Moss playing well, they have a really good shot at beating Jacksonville in Jacksonville. I know Jacksonville is coming off a really big win in against the Bills, but they're also traveling across a continent that they've been in for 2 weeks. So there's going to be some jet lag there, I'm assuming. They are home, but Colts have played well, and they're a tough team to beat. So I think that's going to be a close game, and I'm looking forward to that.
I do too. I mean, the Jag. Yeah, the Colts had the Jags down 14. Yeah. Colts had the Jags down 14 in the season opener. I mean, they had that game. If the Colts could have ran the ball, that was the Deion Jackson game where Deion Jackson, I think, he carried the ball like 15 times for 16 yards. And then they finally said, oh, we got to get Moss in here. We got to cut this guy. If they could have ran the ball at all, like they have the last couple weeks in that opener, they win that game. They just could not run the clock at all because they had no running game whatsoever. They were up in that game. They should have won that game. I think Minshew keeps them in it here. I actually do. I said at the beginning of the year, people thought I was crazy. I said this team can win 10 games. I said, do I think they're a legit 10-win team? No. But I said the schedule sets up where this team can win 10 games. And I think with Minshew in it, I don't think they're, like you said, I don't think they're that much worse off than AR. I think AR is the future. I love AR, but I think Minshew at this point can keep them in games. If the defense can keep playing as well as they've been playing, I think they're in it. So I'm here for the ride. I'm here for Minshew mania. Let's see where it takes us.
And to add to that too, like, yes, the Jags look good last week, but you got to consider a couple things here. The Bills were completely decimated on defense. Like they were done. Like, especially traveling as well. Like, they lost a couple key guys early in that match. They were tired. When has the Jags ran the ball like that so effectively in the past? It doesn't happen all that much. Their O-line isn't great. They were able to create some holes for Etienne up the middle, which isn't normal. Etienne's all his big runs are along the sidelines and stuff. So I'm not convinced. I know it was the Bills. They are great defense, but there was a lot of variable factors there. And if we look past that, the Jags have only looked good in game one, really, against the Colts there, right? That was the only real game that they looked dynamite in other than this week. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. And I think the Colts have a really good shot, and I'm hoping to see it.
We got another viewer comment here. Let's pull this up, get a little action here. So Z Smitty says he loves Walker, Mixon, JT, Chain, Montgomery, Stroud, Jettas, Alave, Waddle, Puka, Kittle, Ertz, Deontay Johnson. He asked, do I trade Puka, Montgomery, and Mixon for CD and Bijan? So I'm guessing I'm hoping this is Dynasty. I'm guessing this is a Dynasty question. If it's redraft, depends. I could see taking CD and Bijan in redraft there. Dynasty, if it's Dynasty, I'm totally willing to trade Puka, Montgomery, and Mixon for CD and Bijan. If you can get that deal done, smash it. I'm taking it for sure.
Yeah, me too. Definitely in a Dynasty league, that is a no-brainer. In a redraft, I'd be thinking a little bit harder. Gibbs is going down now. It looks like he's going to miss it until at least week 7, it looks like. So Montgomery's already been a smash play. That's only going to open up more. Puka obviously has been able to command that target share even with Kupp in the lineup, and I see brighter things in Mixon's future right now too, with the Bengals looking good. He would have scored last week. He had a couple mishaps on the goal line there, which is not normal for him. So I see Mixon coming back. So if this is a redraft one, that's a tough call for me, because there's a lot of assets in those 3 players that could really help, especially with these buys and all the injuries that are happening. That extra player, that extra running back, like those are 2 real solid running backs at this stage of the game that you're getting. And CD hasn't been great. I'm optimistic about his later half of the season, but all 3 of those guys that you're getting in a redraft would be that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some people there. He's got Walker, Mixon, JT. Obviously, if JT comes back and starts getting a share, he's looking better there. Shane out a couple weeks, so that one hurts him. I like Monty. Obviously, Monty's been phenomenal. Lave, Waddle are your top dogs. Puka just puts you over the top. CD with Puka there, I can see that. This one might be a preference thing. If you kind of feel like CD and Bijan are gonna continue to rise, and you don't feel as good about Puka, Monty, and Mixon, I can see that. But at this point in the year, if it's redraft for me and it's pretty close, I'm almost holding on to the depth, just because these bye weeks are gonna get brutal through these, and with some of these injuries, I almost want more guys to make sure I'm not having to turn around and I make this trade, and then I turn around and have to go get a long shot running back off the waiver wire, because all of a sudden Walker's on bye, Shane's still out, JT's still not getting a full amount of carries, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting here, I'm going, well, I'm pretty much playing Bijan and Walker, and I gotta hope neither one gets hurt or nobody's on a bye if I make this trade. So that's the only thing that would hold me back slightly on this trade.
What a shitty So hold on, I gotta say that's a crappy morning to wake up to here with Achan and Justin Jefferson going on IR this morning. That's a stacked team. I can't even believe that team was even drafted.
I know that's the only reason I say that I'm worried about slightly making that trade, because I'm like, oh, with the injuries and the way things happen, I love this. I love what you've built here. But I'm like, man, with some of these injuries, I hate to give up a 3 for 2, even if I do love Bijan and CD. I almost hate doing it just because the injuries and stuff are kind of building.
Absolutely.
We got another one here. Let's take another one. We've got Julio Villa says, I got Fields, Bijan, Pollard, Olave, Deontay on IR. Ouch. Zay Jones, Jameson Williams, Marvin Mims, Connor just got hurt. I'm hurting for running back, obviously, here in the bye weeks. Going to hit me hard. He's asking, the next one says, should I trade Pollard, Olave, Tajay Spears, Reed for Mozart, Ayuk, Nico Collins, and Kirk? Ooh, we getting some big trades. These guys doing like eight-person trades. So he's asking, do I trade Pollard, Olave, Spears, and Jaden Reed for Mozart, Ayuk, Nico, and Christian Kirk? That's a pretty interesting one. I like the Ayuk and Kirk in there. Nico's look good. Mozart with a chain out is going to be better, but you're giving up Pollard there. I do like Tajay. Reed and Olave I like. Probably Ayuk, Kirk, Collins beat them out, but is it enough for you to take Mozart over Pollard and Spears? What do you think? This is a full redraft PPR.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's tough to wrap your head around all four of those, four guys in each trade there. I love Nico, I love Ayuk, I love Kirk. They're all very high floor guys right now. Mostert is, the RB3 right now in fantasy football, which could continue. He has an injury bug. That's a tough one. That really is tough. I am leaning.
He says later here, he says his team's real bad. He's trying to mix it up just to give you a little hint of what he's saying. He says his team's terrible, and I'm trying to do something here. So that give you a little more context.
Yeah, I like Ayuk. I'm gonna go with that side just based off. You want to switch it up, then do it. Like that's not a lopsided trade in any way. Pollard hasn't lived up to the expectation yet. Olave is still struggling. I love Spears, and I think he's going to emerge in the second half. Jaden Reed, he's going to have his, if you watched the game last night, the Packers did not look good whatsoever. So I like the latter side there, the Mostert, Ayuk, Collins, and Kirk, but I could be on the minority there.
I think I got to agree with you. If you're like, hey, my team's bad, I got to mix it up. I got to do something. Mozart, Ayuk, Nico, and Kirk, I like it. I think you could make a move and come back. And actually, this is a fantastic question leading into our last segment of the night. What we're going to talk about is we're 6 weeks in. About a third of the year in. What are our strategies down the stretch here? So this is a perfect example. Somebody whose team is not good. It's redraft. They're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? Usually we consider you're either a contender, you're a rebuilder, or what I like to call a hold. A team that's a hold. So a team that's a hold for me is a team that maybe is in Dynasty. I'm young. Maybe my record is bad, but I like my assets, and I think I'm going to get some high draft picks, and I think I could turn it around quickly with a good team. So for me, that's what I consider kind of a hold team. Technically, it's probably a rebuild team, but I feel like rebuild is like, I got to tear it down to rebuild. I feel like my whole team's like, I'm already in the middle of that rebuild, and I feel good about where I'm at. So a little bit going along with these strategies here, kind of what are you talking about? What are some of the teams you have, and what are some of the strategies you're implementing here now that we're 6 weeks into the season?
Well, exactly that. You got to really determine whether or not, this is a great time of year to figure that out. We're about 5 games in, just past a quarter of the way through the season. Now it's time to evaluate your team, especially in Dynasty, because you want to be the first on the gun, in my opinion. You want to be the first one to make a move, whether you are selling or buying or holding that player, because chances are, if you're the first one in the market, you're probably going to get the best deal. You're setting the market. You're setting the tone of the market. So you're setting the price for your guys. So if I'm a buyer and I see my team 4-1, 5-0 type scenario right now, I'm considered a contender at that stage. You might be able to throw in the odd 3-2 team there that, had a bad bounce here and there, had an injury guy that's come back now. Those are contending teams too. But we're really looking at the big powerhouses right now, the 5-0 teams, the 4-1 teams that need to make a move to, further cement themselves and put pressure on the rest of the league. So if you're 5-0 right now, make a move now. Let's separate yourself from the 4-1s and, buy that, maybe that aging asset that like a Mike Evans, like a Keenan Allen. You might be able to get them on the cheap in a dynasty league where you give up, like, I wouldn't say a cheap, but like maybe a Garrett Wilson right now for a Keenan Allen. If you're in a contending situation where a guy like Keenan Allen will put you over the top, knowing that you're going to give up an asset in Garrett Wilson, but he may be a year or two away still from, emerging into that top dynasty asset realm. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like that move. I'm kind of the same way. I've got a couple teams that I just are not get it done. I'm going to have to break them down. I've got Mike Evans in some spots, and he's a guy I'm probably looking at. If I'm in that spot, I'm trying to trade him. I tried to trade him before the season, and people weren't really biting. But now that we're seeing these injuries, and now that people are trying to figure out, oh, I'm in it or I'm not in it, now's maybe the time I need to go out and start looking to resell him. He's also a guy I'd be buying on the other side of that. If I'm contending and I'm like, oh, I really could use another good flex play, another strong wide receiver, he's a guy I'd be buying because, again, he's older, but he's not the end of his career. Everybody was worried about how he would look with Baker. He's actually looked pretty solid. So now is probably a really good sell time on someone like him. I'm a buyer on Keenan Allen. If you can get somebody to get rid of him because he's been hurt so much, he's looked phenomenal this year so far, and I have him everywhere I can that I have Herbert because I love that stack. But he's a guy you can maybe go get him for maybe not a ton. Maybe you have to pay that late first or early second or something for him. But if you could trade Keenan Allen for a second and a third and you're contending where you're going to turn around, those are going to be a late second and a late third. I love that move to try to get it done for a championship this year because he's looked great. So I definitely like your idea there going out and grabbing some of those guys, especially in Dynasty Redraft. Obviously a little bit harder. You got to figure out how your team works out in that sense. But I like the idea. Monty, people were way down on him, and especially after they drafted Gibbs. I love Monty. Now, is he going to be a little more expensive than he would have been 3 weeks ago? Yes, because he has played so well and they've given him so many carries, but you might have people that are still kind of out on him, think that this is a little bit of an anomaly and, he's done it now, but is he going to keep it up all year? He's definitely a guy I think you could go out and buy. I've got him in a lot of leagues. That he's been an excellent RB1 or RB2 for me, especially in like deeper 14 team leagues. He's been, solid goal for me at RB. So I like that, those moves as well.
Agreed. Changing those little bit of those aging assets that are a little, deteriorating in value, but are still very, very fantasy relevant. Those are the ones that are going to put you over the top. Others that you could consider in that position, like a Raheem Mostert, Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard. These are all guys that are aging. They're on their end of their, their contracts here, looking for something new. These are the guys that you want to get in there that could put your team over the top as far as running back go. I like Evans, like you mentioned earlier, Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley is another name that's up there as well. DJ Moore might be a little bit harder to acquire after this week, but he would have been another guy I would be trying to buy at this stage. And then, like your Cooper Kupp or Devontae Adams, you may be able to get them as well, especially if you dangle like a Garrett Wilson, carrot in front of their face. They might bite on that.
Yeah, I'm in like a 14 team super flex league where I'm in the mix. Like my team is not deep, but I'm off to I think I'm off to a 9-1 start. I traded my first round pick next year for Matt Stafford and Zach Moss, and they have been phenomenal for me. I mean, Stafford's looked like the old Stafford. They're throwing the ball around, and if he can get me to a championship game and hopefully win it when my only other second quarterback was Baker Mayfield. To me, that's worth it. I know this league that I'm in win now mode. I hate to give up the first, but it's, I just gotta make that move. I just can't sit still. So again, if you can find other owners, say you're the guy that's kind of on the other end of that, and you have a Stafford, you have a Mostert, you have a Mike Evans, go reach out to some of those main owners. Go find that guy that just found out that JJ's hurt and going on IR. See if you can make a trade to that owner because he's going to need help, and he's most likely, if he's got JJ, he's been winning. So go and look for those guys and see if you can make a move somewhere in that range. Now is the time where people are going to start making that decision over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Teams are going to decide I'm either in it or I'm absolutely not in it. And this is where you got, and you want to, like you said, you want to be the first guy in trying to make these trades as opposed to waiting until 3 or 4 other guys in your league make a trade. And then you're the guy coming in and going, oh, I need to make a move too. And it's too late.
Agreed. 100%. Great advice. And you know what? It's something that we preach, but we also follow that too. So we're not just telling you to do stuff like these are types of moves that we are making and we're actively trying to pull off right now in our dynasty leagues. Awesome. That was great.
Wizzy Jefferson jumped in here and said he fired off the trade, boys. So good luck, man.
Nice.
I'm hoping it works for you. I hope it get it. Also, Zay Smitty said it's not dynasty. He has it's a 10-man league redraft. He says he's got lucky with the drafting and some waiver wire moves. So again, Smitty, it's kind of up to what you want to do here, but again, I like Puka, Monty, Mixon just for the depth pieces. I think CD and Bijan have the bigger name recognition, but in a redraft league, at least for this 1 year, especially with some injuries to JJ and Deontay for you, and a Kane and waiting on JT to get back, I might wait a week or two before I start trying to sell these off because you might need this depth over the next couple of weeks with bye weeks and everything else. I'm probably keeping Puka, Monty, and Mixon personally in a 10-team redraft. What do you think? Again, just one more time on that move for Smitty.
Yeah, I agreed. Like 100% there. Like you said, with easing those guys back in, JT is going to need some time. Waiting for Achan to come back and Jefferson. Yeah, you're going to need that depth. Bye weeks are coming in strong. I think there's 6 teams on buys next week. So once we're through next week, I think it'll be a little bit calmer. But I would weather that storm. Your team is definitely good enough to get through these next 2 weeks with the win or two. Like I'm pretty confident in that.
Yeah, and Wizzy Jefferson got back on and asked us thoughts on Roschon taking over the backfield. We talked about it a little earlier. I'm a big Roschon guy. I think now's the buy time to get him. I think he's just going to get more work as the season moves along. I like what Khalil Herbert's done. That injury looked really bad. They're saying it's not as bad as it originally looked, but I would not think that he's coming back real quickly. So if you can get Roschon, I think now's the time to grab him.
Do it now. And talent always prevails, and people are saying that Roschon is the more talented back in that backfield. All he needs is that chance to get in there. He has some issues with pass protection, but Foreman's coming back on. So even if Foreman gets a third down role, I see Roschon still being very productive, especially if Fields and DJ Moore are continuing what they have done. That play action is going to be a very good weapon for them moving forward.
So last couple final thoughts here on the show before we wrap things up. For me, going forward these next couple weeks, it is decision-making time. Are you the contender? Are you the rebuilder? Or are you a hold? I have a league where I'm really bad right now. I'm like 1-4, and I've got people trying to buy CMC off me. And they're like, well, you're bad. Why aren't you trading them? I'm like, but I love my team. My team's super young. They just haven't performed great up to this point. I've lost a lot of close games, but I really like this team. And I think this team is actually going to be really good next year. So if I get an offer that blows me away for CMC, maybe I trade him. But I'm also in that point where just because your team's losing now, don't get ahead of yourself and just start shipping everything off. Because you're like, oh, well, I'm having a bad year, and you just feel like you get desperate and you got to make a million trades. So definitely evaluate your roster. Is your roster losing, and is your roster bad, legit bad? or is your roster losing because you're just not getting good performances? You have guys like Olave that haven't broke out. You guys have guys like Najee who just hasn't had any big games yet. That's a difference between you have a roster with solid pieces that just isn't performing, and then looking at your roster and going, oh man, I'm starting Braxton Berrios every week. It's time to sell everything I have because I've got a full rebuild this year. So definitely take stock. These are great questions to send out, because I think, you jump on the Dynasty Pros channel, you jump on our Discord, any of our X pages, and send us these questions. I think this is the time you want to start talking about it, figuring out where you want to go with guys, who's a possibility, those types of things. Because you sometimes just bouncing that off other guys, helps you kind of settle and get your thought process together. And you don't want to do anything too crazy or rash right away, just because you're upset your team's not playing well. You agree there, Mike?
And agreed. And one thing to add to that is, like, I remember when I said, like, okay, you want to be the first one in on it when you're making those moves, unless we're dealing with like a super elite asset like a CMC or a Justin Jefferson. If you're willing to move one of those guys come, in a dynasty league, I'd be waiting a little bit closer to the trade deadline where, you could probably fetch a really big ransom if you can, create a bidding war between a couple of owners that are, one piece away from that championship. So unless it's an elite asset, I would be the first one in. But then, you're playing with house money at that stage. If you're dealing that elite asset, the ball's in your court. There's nothing that is, forcing you to do it. So make the most out of that.
All right, time to wrap things up as we're on the hour mark here. Mike, tell everybody where they can find you, all that good stuff on social media, and kind of what you're doing out there in the fantasy world.
Awesome. First off, I had a blast. Thanks for having me. You can find me on the X or Twitter at FFCanuck99, and all my written content at dynastypros.com. You can also find me on the Dynasty Pros Football Network every week with my boa, Brandon Booth, doing the Dynasty Pros weekend warm-up, catching everyone up with everything you'll need to know headed into the weekend. So we usually post that usually Saturday morning or late Friday afternoon. So look for that on our stream. And it was a great time having me on this show. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, guys, make sure you go check out everything at dynastypros football.com. We've got all kinds of written content. You can join and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of different guys putting out great podcasts all week long. We've got, content Monday through Friday for you. So make sure you go and subscribe and like and comment on those things, so you know when all their shows going on. You can always find me here on the stew with JT Brew, doing fantasy hockey, fantasy football, college betting, NFL betting. I've got all kinds of stuff on the channel. So just make sure you check out all the stuff I've got for you. Also hit me up on the Devy show every Tuesday and Thursday night. We do our Devy show for people that are in Devy leagues. Tommy is on that one, SC Romero, and those guys, just Andy fam, just great group of guys. Check us out every Tuesday night, 9:30 Eastern time, 8:30 Central time, and then also on Thursday nights. If you're into IDP, check out my rankings on DLF.com, and also on Fantrax. I have an IDP article every Wednesday on Fantrax HQ. Again, for Mike joining me, thanks everybody. I appreciate all the guests coming in, everybody asking us questions, all that stuff. It's fantastic. Always makes the show that much more enjoyable. We appreciate it. May all your draft picks hit and the trade never quit. We're out here on the stew. Check you next time.
Peace out.
You up on trades and why you move? You ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release. We started with the mock draft.